Hello, and welcome back to more Films That Are Constant Critique, where we take a look at films, some good, some bad, and some downright awful. I'm Bongo Baikov, joined by our host Maverick, Dren, Zaria. This week, we're taking a look at the 1992 film, The Lawnmower Man.
Yes, this is another viewer request. So, on our Halloween Kills podcast, Antara 755, sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, asked if we could review this. So, if you're listening to this, we finally got around to it. This was released March 6th, 1992. It cost $10 million and made $150 million.
That's a pretty good return.
I'm gonna double check that and make sure I read that right. Okay, yeah, that's right.
you almost don't believe it.
I'm still a bit dumbfounded that it made that much money. I was actually, I thought this was more of a cult film, so when I saw the budget and the box office, I was a little surprised.
And the box office, hang on, yeah.
So this was directed by Brett Leonard.
What else did he do?
Virtuosity. Have you ever heard of this movie? When I found out he directed Virtuosity, I was like, actually, that makes a lot of sense.
It does.
How much do you know about this movie?
I don't know a lot. I've seen, the poster and things, and I'm like, that looks a lot like Lawnmower Man.
The plot is also very, okay, the first thing about that movie, it's ridiculous, for one. It's set in the future where Denzel Washington plays a cop tracking down a computer-simulated serial killer played by Russell Crowe.
Okay, we might have to do this.
Russell Crowe, we need to do this just for Russell Crowe's performance, because it's amazing. Yeah. It's one of the most over-the-top performances of his career, that's for sure.
You know what we could do? We could do Virtuosity versus American Gangster.
Oh, because they both have Denzel Washington and Russell Crowe in them.
Yeah, but in one of them, Denzel's the cop, and Russell Crowe's the serial killer, and then in American Gangster, the protagonist and antagonist roles are switched.
I don't remember much of American Gangster, to be honest, but that's funny if that's the case. But yeah, the Brett Leonard directed that and Lawnmower Man, which I'm like, you know what? Actually, that makes a lot of sense. They're both very 90s depictions of technology, which is just hilarious. He also directed the Sci-Fi Channel movies Man Thing.
Ooh.
And Highlander the Source, which...
Oh, good.
In a series with a lot of bad sequels, Highlander the Source is by far the worst one. Man Thing we should do, though, because that's a Marvel movie, apparently.
Yeah. And it came out in 2005, so right before the MCU started.
I've mentioned it before. It's like a suggestion I had. Maybe we should do that at some point. That might be funny.
Yeah.
So, Lawnmower Man shares the same name as a Stephen King short story, but nothing else in common.
Okay.
They basically had a random script about computer stuff and the rights to one of his stories, and so they just went from there. Early advertising tried to call this Stephen King's The Lawnmower Man, but King sued them since it bore zero resemblance to the story, and he won the lawsuit. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, they tried to use King's name when it was released on home video, so he sued them again.
Sued again? That's a really bold move on the studio's part. I wonder how much money they lost because of the lawsuits.
But yeah, so this really doesn't have anything to do with that Stephen King short story. Instead, it took more elements from Flowers for Algernon.
Huh.
I'm glad I'm not the only person that's noticed that parallel, because like it really does kind of feel like that, where it's like you take this guy who's like, you know, mentally disabled, and then he becomes really smart.
Yeah.
What I like to do is I like to call this Flowers for Algernon meets Tron, so Flowers for AlgerTron. And there's also a Star Trek episode with a similar plot, although unfortunately it is not Shatner that has the weird god powers.
Oh no! What's even the point?
Although there is an episode of Star Trek where there's like an evil clone of Captain Kirk, which is
Oh, I imagine that's just fantastic.
it's pretty great, yeah. So the cast, we have Jeff Fahey, who is a returning cast member.
Yep.
Grindhouse. I think he's in...
Yeah. Planet Terror.
Isn't he in one of the fake trailers, too?
Oh, he might be.
I think he's in the Machete trailer, right?
Yes, because he's in the Machete movie as well.
And he's in the actual movie Machete. He's in Psycho 3. It's a very weird movie. And I bet most people they're like, wait, there was a Psycho 3?
Of course.
It was directed by Anthony Perkins, too.
Oh, really?
He's also in Darkman 3.
He likes being in his sequels.
He plays the villain in that. And he's also in Lost.
Yep, as Frank Lapidus, the pilot.
So you do remember him from Lost, okay.
Yes.
Another returning cast member, Pierce Brosnan.
And this is the second time that we have him play like a scientist character.
Oh, kind of. He's a professor in Mars Attacks, I guess.
Close enough.
I think he's better suited for that role though than he was for this one, because in this one, I'll talk. I'll talk about that later. But okay, so, but for context, Pierce Brosnan. This movie came out after Remington Steele ended, but before he played James Bond.
Okay.
Yeah, like we mentioned, we've had him on the podcast before because he's in Mars Attacks, and we had him in Goldeneye as well. I kind of just want to watch Goldeneye again, to be honest. Dean Norris.
Which I was not expecting to see. I feel like every time he shows up, I'm like, I wasn't expecting to see Dean Norris in this.
He's like barely in. I think all the movies we've had him in, it's just like some bit part, basically, because he's in...
Yeah, where he shows up for like 5 minutes, says something, and then leaves.
He's in Total Recall.
Yep.
His role in Total Recall is a little more memorable, but you barely recognize him because he's has like stuff on his face. He's in Gremlins too. That's one where I honestly don't know where he is in that movie.
If I remember, it's like very short, like seconds of screen time.
I don't even know if he has any lines in that one. But of course, most people know him from Breaking Bad. He played Hank in Breaking Bad.
Yep.
He's also in the Under the Dome show.
Oh, good. What character does he play?
Big Jim. He's like the main bad guy.
That makes sense. That makes a lot of sense.
To be fair, he's one of the better parts of that show. Austin O'Brien, which he is in Last Action Hero. and Lawnmower Man 2 Beyond Cyberspace.
Yeah. Is he the only returning cast member?
For the sequel, he might be. Also we have a cast member from Twin Peaks. I don't know if you noticed that.
I did, and I actually wrote it down. Because he was like one of the cops, like part of the way through the movie that shows up. Because he's also the principal of the high school.
Yes, I was wondering if you would notice that or not when watching this.
I did, because I had just watched that episode like 3 days ago.
I feel like with a lot of movies, I just watch them and I'm like, oh yeah, they were in Twin Peaks, you know? Or with RoboCop, I watch it and I'm like, wait, there's several people in this that are in Twin Peaks.
Yeah.
The poster of this one I find interesting. Let me pull this up. The poster, it's...
Oh, there you go with the eye. Yeah.
It's a pretty memorable poster, you know, with like the eye looking over and the guy.
Yeah, the eye that has like the Da Vinci looking. What's it called? The Da Vinci's
Vitruvian Man? Vitruvian Man?
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Except in like a weird, I don't know what the hell those things are. The tagline, I find the tagline kind of funny, honestly.
Yeah.
God made him simple. Science made him a god.
Nice.
But of course, if you've seen Road to El Dorado, you know that it's tough to be a god. So.
Exactly.
Another tagline in the UK, it was called the UK's first virtual reality film.
That feels like a lie. It's a film about virtual reality. It's not a virtual reality film.
They need to do, like, if virtual reality movies take off, they need to re-release this in, like, a virtual reality thing.
Oh, yeah. Give people nightmares.
Give people nightmares, yeah, exactly. Okay, so initial thoughts, and I'm gonna start by... I'll let you start first, but I want to ask you something. So...
Okay.
You sent me a text earlier.
Okay, yeah, okay, I know where this is going. Yeah.
Saying that this movie wasn't what you were expecting it to be. What were you expecting it to be, and what did it turn out to be?
So, just seeing the poster, and, like, just looking at some basic plot synopses, and just love, like, what I knew about the movie, I thought it was all gonna be, like, virtual reality stuff. Maybe almost like a Tron type, where it's, like, some guy gets stuck in there, he has to fight some, like, powerful beak in VR. And, like, I had seen clips of it towards the end, specifically, like, the crucifixion scene that happens. What I got instead was an incredibly unethical scientist essentially forcing a very like an intellectually disabled man into a series of very unethical experiments and turning him into some crazed psychokinetic genius. It was nothing like the movie I was expecting it to be going in.
So, would Pierce Brosnan's character fit in the category worst scientist, do you think?
I think he would. He has a really good shot at being the worst scientist, just in terms of, like, morality and ethics. Because, like, technically he accomplishes what he sets out to do. It's just not a good thing.
Because I think we awarded that category to Dr. Voller from Indiana Jones and the Dial of Destiny.
Yeah.
So that's his competition. Is he worse than Mads Mikkelsen as a Nazi, basically?
I mean, he really, when you think about it, he was trying to make, like, an Ubermensch type, so, like...
Oh, God.
He kinda is.
Kind of. We'll probably get into that later once we get...
Yeah.
So, do you have any other things to add there?
Yeah, so I need to preface this with, this is not a good movie. That being said, I did have a lot of fun with it. I did like a lot of the weird 3D animation sequences, and it's 92, so they're very rough, but they're still kind of cool to see. Just seeing where the technology was at that time. But also, the movie gets so weird so fast. It makes so many strange just decisions and like plot turns that I genuinely did not know where it was going next.
You did watch the director's cut, right?
No, I watched the theatrical cut.
Oh god. I've heard the theatrical cut makes even less sense.
There were moments where I was like, what the hell is happening? Why can he do this now? But we'll get into that.
Okay, so so I had seen this one before. I think I'd seen it like once before, I believe. And I think it was the theatrical cut. I remember it not being that good, although I did like the weird VR scenes.
Yeah.
Basically, I thought it was okay with a few weird parts. I thought it had a cool concept, but it wasn't realized to its full potential. This watch, I was like, okay, I'm curious. What is the director's cut like? So I watched that version, and I will give it this. It's a weird movie. It's not a very good movie, but it is a weird movie.
It is an exceptionally weird movie.
Strangely, it might not be as weird as the original short story, which it shares no resemblance to.
Yeah.
So I did get some enjoyment out of it, maybe not for the right reasons, but it does have a weird charm to it.
Yeah.
More entertaining than Hollow Man, our last podcast, I'll say that. It does start off a bit slow, but once it just devolves into nonsense, it becomes really entertaining to watch. And I think you know which part of the movie I'm talking about.
Yeah, there's a point that it hits where it's like a point of no return, and then it's just kind of insane after that.
I really was just like, I bet you're gonna be so baffled watching this one.
I was. It got me.
And I've heard because with the director's cut, like it was slower, but like the plot made a little bit more sense because it had some it probably made a little more sense because it had some scenes added in with like
Yeah.
But I'm curious how this is gonna go since we watched two different versions of it. Leonard Maltin. What do you want to guess?
Okay. I'm gonna guess 2 out of 4. He praised the early CG graphics. That's what I'm gonna go with.
1.5 out of 4.
Ooh, 1.5.
He said, at least the pyrotechnics at the end, simulating virtual reality, are full of visual buzz. Fahey in a blonde wig is really tough to take.
Yeah. That's fair.
Hilariously, he gave the sequel a higher rating, but we'll get to that.
Are you serious? Oh no.
Okay, so I called this a cult film earlier.
Yeah.
Apparently you can take that literally. This was... I was doing a bit of reading about this movie. This was apparently the favorite movie of cult leader David Koresh.
Are you serious?
Which, anybody who doesn't know, he's the Waco guy. The guy, the Branch Davidians, that guy. He apparently showed it to his followers to... Sorry, what were you...
Hold on, I'm still trying to digest that. His favorite movie was The Lawnmower Man?
One of his favorite movies, apparently. He apparently showed it to his followers to explain how he achieved spiritual ascendancy.
Of course. Naturally.
And apparently they watched it so many times. It's like... So watching this movie with this knowledge beforehand made this movie very fascinating to me.
Yeah.
What's both hilarious and terrifying about that also is this movie probably seemed completely normal to him.
Yeah.
Considering what I know about that guy, like, just Christ. And another interesting trivia fact I found, some of the CGI footage was later used in Beyond the Mind's Eye.
Yes, and actually, I have a copy of Beyond the Mind's Eye on Laserdisc.
That's what I was gonna
Yep.
mention that, because I was like, I think I thought I'd remembered you mentioning you had it on Laserdisc. I'm like, wait a minute.
Yeah, so I had seen... I think if I remember... if I remember correctly, it's like when Dr. Angelo, who's Pierce Brosnan's character, goes through like this one really trippy VR sequence towards the beginning of the film. They basically just like cut that out and stuck that into the Beyond the Mind's Eye, which is like it's like a compilation of other early like CG short films.
Okay. I think you suggested doing that on the podcast at one point, and we kind of have now. We kind of have.
Yeah.
Some of it, at least. Okay, so the story of this one.
Boy.
So the plot of this one is that a scientist named Dr. Pierce Brosnan I don't remember what his actual name was. He's just Pierce Brosnan to me in this. He tries testing VR on Simple Jack, who mows lawns, which ends up making him smart with godlike powers. And things go wrong, obviously. Otherwise, we wouldn't have a movie.
Things go off the rails so fast.
Imagine Charlie if it was a horror movie, I guess. Come to think of it, this and Hollow Man are sort of similar, where it's a science experiment gone wrong.
Yeah, gone very, very wrong.
Imagine if they switched, so Hollow Man had Jeff Fahey and this had Kevin Bacon in it. Jeez.
Kevin Bacon as Job would have been so psychotic.
Okay, so I do technically have this split into pros and cons, but I don't actually know if that's what I should call some of this stuff. So
that's very fair.
So Pierce Brosnan is a scientist who tests stuff on chimpanzees.
Basically, he's trying to give them a drug and using virtual reality to make their minds bigger.
And I was already thrown off by this movie because Pierce Brosnan is like wearing glasses and has messy hair.
Yeah.
Like, I was like thinking, wait, who does he remind? He looks more like Gregory Peck in this than Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah, actually, huh?
There's parts of this where he looks kind of like Atticus Finch, does he not?
Yeah. Huh.
And he basically plays a mad scientist in this, which is... So there's some novelty to it that it's like, okay, it's Pierce Brosnan in a role we don't usually see of him.
Yeah.
Usually he's in, like, action movies and comedies, it seems. I guess parts of this are funny, but not for the right reasons. And one of his chimp at the beginning is named Roscoe 1138, which maybe is a reference to THX 1138.
It could be.
And, okay, maybe this is because I watch the director's cut, but we do get some character development here. I don't know if yours had.
Which character? Because the stuff with Roscoe in the theatrical cut is very, very short. He pretty much does like a jailbreak. He ends up killing at least one guard. Breaks out of facility before he's himself is killed. So there's not really any like character development.
No, I was talking more. There's like scenes of like Pierce Brosnan with his wife and stuff.
Oh yeah. So there's a little bit in the theatrical cut too,
and there's some of that in the director's cut. It might have went on a bit too long though. And then also we do see what Jeff Fahey's life is like before he gets,
Yeah. Also, sorry if I sound like crap right now. My allergies have been like destroying me.
I think you mentioned that. Yeah. Is this another movie that made you sick?
I think it was the movie this time. It's the mice that I work with. I'm allergic to them now.
So what I was gonna say was, one of the problems we had with Hollow Man was like Kevin Bacon. He kind of just acts the same when he's not invisible and when he is.
Yeah.
Whereas it would have been more interesting if like the experiment had like changed him or like
made
driven
him
him
a bad person.
Crazy. Whereas here, you have Jeff Fahey's character. He starts off like as this like, again, it's like Flowers for Algernon, where he starts off like mentally disabled. The townsfolk make fun of him, and then he just becomes really smart. Except unlike Flowers for Algernon, he gets god powers.
Yeah.
So it's a little more interesting because you
get
you kind of get two performances from Jeff Fahey in this movie.
That's true. He goes through a very stark character change.
And I realized something while watching this. Jeff Fahey is during the beginning parts of this movie, he's basically just playing Simple Jack in this. Yeah. He not only acts like Simple Jack, he just looks kind of like Simple Jack from Tropic Thunder, if anyone hasn't seen it. So. Oh my god. So that's something that really that adds a lot of entertainment value to this.
And this is something else. I guess we'll get into this more when we talk about like the powers he does get. It reminded me of the Matrix in a couple of ways.
Yeah, kind of, yeah, because they have him hooked up to a computer, like in the Matrix. I can kind of see that, yeah.
Plus, like, the fact that, he starts being able to interact with stuff in the real world, like he was in VR, kind of like Neo in the third movie.
I mean, also in the first movie, too, but yeah.
Yeah.
Except Neo doesn't turn, like... I guess this is like if Neo turned into Agent Smith or something.
Yeah.
And speaking of that, it is interesting seeing, like, an early depiction of VR. The CGI, obviously, very dated, but it kind of works, because then it sort of looks like a 90s video game. With all these, like, weird graphics and stuff.
And, like, there's a lot of it that, again, like you mentioned, it's dated, but a lot of it works super well, especially, whenever the movie wants to come off as a little, like, creepier or darker, I feel like it adds to that feeling. It's almost like an uncanny valley.
It was inhuman, yeah.
Yeah.
I can see that. And it's a well-shot movie.
Yeah.
There's like some good camera angles, and again, VR stuff looks interesting. And the set design isn't bad. I was like 10 minutes into this, and I already had more nice things to say about this movie than Hollow Man, so...
That's a little sad.
I don't know what was going on here. So I don't know if this is in your version. There's this priest that he hangs out with
Yep.
that, like,
Yeah, so
I think was, like,
so
abusing him or something. I don't know what was going on
yeah.
with that.
So there's this like weird subplot in this movie where Bill Fahey's character Job, I don't think he lives with the priest, but like he's around him pretty frequently.
I think he said Bill Fahey, but anyway.
I did say Bill Fahey. Sorry, I meant Jeff Fahey. Anyway, Jeff Fahey's character is named Job. Like he either lives with the priest or else he's like,
I don't even know what was going on with that. Like,
yeah, yeah. Either way, he's just constantly around. His character. He starts off being very physically abusive towards Job, and then the priest, at least in the theatrical version, just kind of disappears for a while until towards the very end of the movie when Job's got all of his like god powers.
yeah, I don't know. It was weird. And he also likes reading comic books like Cybo Man and Kung Fu Cyborgs, which I'm not gonna lie, I'd read Kung Fu Cyborgs.
Yeah.
Oh, okay, I don't know if you noticed this, there was a character in this that talks like he's out of a Monty Python sketch.
Is it the guy that talks with the thickest Irish accent you've ever
The
heard?
guy with the mustache and green hat.
Yeah. He's got the thickest Irish accent that you ever heard. The entire movie. Just a very friendly Irishman that watches over poor Job.
There's like this scene at one point, it comes out of nowhere. He's like scolding someone for being mean to Jeff Fahey's character, and his voice becomes more high pitched, and he just sounds like a Monty Python character. And I'm like, he doesn't talk like that the rest of the movie. He doesn't talk like that the rest of the movie. His voice just abruptly changed for like 2 sentences. It was so weird.
Yeah.
There's also a movie that, like Star Crash, it has pretty terrible special effects, but it's very colorful to look at. So,
Yeah.
is that a fair comparison?
Can we talk about Pierce Brosnan and his neighbors? And just the weird relationships between the characters in this movie.
I'm trying to remember where I don't know if I wrote that.
Because I have a lot of this at the beginning, because there's like a lot of hints about it.
Okay. I mainly just
So
remember
you
him
have-
and the monkey.
Yeah. So you have Pierce Brosnan, who's like the scientist doing these weird VR brain expanding experiments. And I don't know about the director's cut, but the theatrical version, he has like either a wife or a girlfriend that disappears after like 20 minutes and never shows up again.
Okay, she has a little bit more screen time in the director's cut, if I remember right.
Okay, that's good. But then she just leaves him. Then you have Job, who mows Pierce Brosnan's lawn.
Yeah, he mows everybody's lawn.
Who's also best friends with a kid that lives next door to Pierce Brosnan, and this kid's entire like point is that his dad beats him, just like kind of openly and in front of everyone. There's this really uncomfortable scene where you can hear the kid getting yelled at by his dad, and you just see Pierce Brosnan standing awkwardly next to Jeff Fahey. It's really weird. Like I don't know how to describe it super well. It feels like discordant. Like there's no reason that all these characters are together.
Yeah, I did feel like some of the stuff towards the beginning, like, went on a bit too long. It was just like, why do we need all this? Like, anyway.
And I imagine it was worse for the director's cut.
Yeah. The director's cut was like 2.5 hours, and it's just like, this didn't need to be 2.5 hours.
Yeah.
And also this was making me wonder what it'd be like because Jeff Fahey's kind of a gardener in this. What if they did this experiment on Chauncey Gardner from being there? That might be a bit scary. Oh, okay. So, what were those? They had these weird rotating things. What was that?
So they have these giant. They're basically like gyroscopes. These giant spheres that they go in when they do VR. So kind of like in the poster, like in the eye. And so then they get in there in a special bodysuit, and then they have a VR headset strapped on. And that lets them enter, I guess, cyberspace. Which, if you take a certain drug, allows you to unlock more of your brain power.
Yeah, oh god, this is another one of those movies that promotes that myth.
I have written down so many times in my notes, just it's magic computers over and over again.
It really is. I'll probably mention that again later, but yeah, it really is just the whole computers can do anything. It's like this is maybe one of the most ridiculous examples of that. Like, cause Superman 3, I mean, that's one where they literally hack a weather satellite to cause bad weather. They program kryptonite. They recreate kryptonite with a computer. Actually, they might be able to do that now that I think about it.
But then this is just utter nonsense. It's like, so Joe becomes like a super smart sorcerer because of VR.
They have these, they put these CDs in to make him just learn things rapidly. I feel like that was making me think of some other movie. But I think they do that they do that in Battlefield Earth, I just realized.
Do they? Oh, no. I was about to say, well, there's a really stupid line. There's a couple really stupid lines in this movie. But there's one when Pierce Brosnan is talking about how much progress Fahey's made. And he says he learned Latin in 2 hours. It took me a year just to learn the Latin alphabet.
Okay.
Do you know what the Latin alphabet is? I'll post a picture for you.
It took 1.5 years. Just the regular alphabet.
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. But hey, maybe it did take...
What do you mean it took him...
Maybe it did take Pierce Brosnan 1.5 years to learn that. I mean, But yeah, then he's also... So, he takes all these, CDs into his mind, and he starts having these weird episodes where his brain overloads. He's suddenly able to read minds.
And he starts screaming at one point. He's like, I see God, I touched God. And then he comes out being able to read people's minds.
And then from here on out, he just starts going completely insane. There's this one part where he's got this chair that spins around, and it's it literally was making me think of Palpatine from Star Wars whenever he spins his chair around, because he just does it in such an evil way.
So I just want you to know that at as soon as I got to him being able to read Pierce Brosnan's mind, I went, I'm so lost. What is happening? Why can he do this? And the fact that it just gets more insane as it goes from there really says something.
He's able to push lawnmowers with his mind. Although, to be fair, okay, there are a lot of interesting ideas going on here. So
there are a lot of really cool ideas.
there's a good scene. I don't know if this is in the theatrical cut. There's the scene where Pierce Brosnan realizes Jeff Fahey has become smarter than he is.
Yeah.
And that's kind of a creepy scene where it's like,
It is. It's in the... I'm pretty sure it's in the theatrical cut, too. Where he's trying to, like, hide his thoughts from Fahey.
It's like, the scientist, like, his creation is, like, gone beyond even his, like, own, It kind of turns into, like, Dr. Frankenstein or something, Pierce Brosnan hating his own creation. And then later in the movie, when he, like, says VR is, like, another dimension that has a lot of... I mean, that like, there's tons of possibilities to explore with that.
Yeah.
But, of course, this... it doesn't.
Speaking of creepy scenes, there are moments throughout the film where they try and make it, like, kind of creepy and suspenseful. And it works pretty well. Like, the one scene that really stands out to me is when Jeff Fahey picks up, like, the woman that lives next door, and is, like, puts her into the VR machine to try and make her smarter, but he ends up lobotomizing her instead.
Okay, yeah, I remember that.
And so it's all shown in, like, this VR world, so it's this really creepy early 3D animation where he becomes some sort of, like, monster.
Yeah, that was kind of interesting, because also it showed, like, he basically gave her, like, a VR overdose there, like...
Yeah.
Because it's like, he's used to it, but she isn't. I'm like, okay, that's interesting. And, like, the weird VR effect. Honestly, a lot of it might have even been intentional, but there's a Community episode where the Dean uses VR.
Yeah.
I think they were referencing this movie because, like, the VR effects in that episode look a lot like...
Are pretty much just Lawnmower.
Some of the stuff, yeah. You half expect Jeff Fahey to yell, "Jesus wept," at some point. Honestly, that line would not be out of place in this movie.
Yeah.
And, okay, so let's talk about the crazy stuff here. Okay, he lights a guy on fire or something.
He lights the priest on fire. And it's like this whole thing where he's, like, floating in the air, and the priest is like, "The devil is in you, Job!" And then he just bursts into flames.
And the effect looked weird. I don't know how to... I don't know what was happening there. It was...
I kind of just... Because if you look at all the other times where he, like, messes with someone with his VR powers... it, like, kind of turns them into a 3D animation, so I'm just kind of chalking it up to that it's, like, VR fire, I guess.
I haven't even gotten to... Okay, there were 2 scenes in this. There was one scene where I was like, what was that? And then there was another one that made me laugh so hard, and I think you know which one I'm talking about. Okay, so...
I've got a couple things in mind that it might be, yeah.
At one point, he... fights a guy and has a VR guy with a lawnmower for a mouth go inside a...
drive over his brain?
It, like, mows his brain, and then he says, "Lawnmower Man's in your head now, Jake."
You.
Lawnmower Man's in your head now, Jake. I'm like, what was that? It was so bizarre. Like, in a movie with a lot of strange images, that might be the strangest one. Like, when I wrote that down, I'm like, I'm not even sure if I could explain this sufficiently, but okay.
Like, I don't even know what the line is supposed to mean. The Lawnmower Man is in your head now, Jake.
I don't know.
Like, because, like, earlier in the movie, Jake calls him the Lawnmower Man.
I guess now he's I don't fucking...
I guess, it's so weird.
I guess he was trying to make him mentally disabled like he used to be. I don't know. That's the only thing I can think of. But then, okay, this part felt like something out of Maximum Overdrive.
Yeah, I know what scene you're gonna talk about.
He kills a guy with a lawnmower. It's the scene. He's using his mind powers to drive a lawnmower through a dude's house. It wrecks the furniture, and then the guy runs out of the house, and the mower launches itself at
Yeah,
him.
it just starts to fly at him to kill him.
And then he screams, and like the screen goes black. Oh my god, I laughed so hard at that. It was so over the top. Like, so there were like parts of this that were like really surreal and creepy, but then there's like some parts which were just like,
we're just goofy.
it was yes.
And like all of these scenes, like those three scenes, they're all just back to back.
Yes.
He immolates the priest, and then he goes and put the Lawnmower Man into Jake's head, and then he kills the other guy with the lawnmower. It's just, it all happens so fast. There's no time to recover from any of it. It's kind of like Halloween Prodigal Son, how it's just he kills someone, and then he walks next door to kill someone else.
Oh god, imagine if this was like the same length as Halloween Prodigal Son, but it was just all the craziest scenes just smashed together. It would be like,
yeah,
it might break somebody if it was like that.
Yeah.
There was one cool visual where he was like in a painting or something. It looked like Van Gogh, although I'm not sure if it was Van Gogh or not. But I thought that was kind of a cool image. And then there
was one part.
Another weird scene. His what? Do you know what I'm about?
Is it the one where he explodes the two guards into the balls and just has them like swirl away?
Yes. So his yellow head appears out on the lawn. These two guys shoot machine guns at it. They're shooting machine guns at this big floating yellow head of the Lawnmower Man. And then he just turns them into dots and makes them disappear.
You know what that head reminded me of? Do you know the game Zombie Nation on NES? Where you're the floating head of the samurai, like...
I was about to ask, is that the one with the samurai head that, like, floats around and destroys things?
Yeah, no, I saw Job's head just float out like that, and that's the first thing I thought of.
Imagine if the movie turned into that. That would have been hilarious. Was that head also, like, I thought that...
It was kind of like reddish.
Orange, red orange or something.
Yeah.
Like a blood orange or something. But yeah, I wrote, after that scene, I wrote, what on earth is going on? It seemed like it was just back to back, just insane scene followed by another insane scene.
And like, so there are two guards that this happens to. The first one is just getting swirled, and the second one is just looking at him screaming the whole time. And then he starts getting, I don't even know what to call what happens to him. Because he essentially gets turned into like little like particles, like essentially just like these balls that just spin in place. And the other guy gets like his body turned into a portal and vanishes. It's kind of a cool effect, but it's so confusing.
And then after that, he's like driving a truck that throws particles around. What? I honestly I just didn't know what to write at this point. I was like,
yeah, I was like, and those like orange particles turn into like these giant bugs that attack everyone.
I forgot about that. Yeah, it was just like there was just so much going on.
It's like just barely coherent.
The most normal thing he does with his powers is make a guy shoot himself with his own gun. I mean, that says something. I forgot about that. That says quite a bit when that's the most normal thing he does with his powers.
And he reveals what his ultimate plan is to eventually connect to all the telephones across the country, or like they basically infect the net across the country. and have everyone's consciousness enter him. It's like he's basically a god of a VR world that everyone lives in. And like that's one of those ideas where it's like that's kind of cool because that's what really reminded me of the Matrix is like he was trying to become the Matrix almost. Like in a better movie that could be the focus, you know?
Yeah. This movie it has a lot of neat ideas. It's just kind of ridiculous, basically. VR, yeah, and then the ending of the movie, Pierce Brosnan goes back inside the VR thing, and I don't know what exactly happened here. I think he just trapped Jeff Fahey in there somehow.
Yeah, so when he comes in, Jeff Fahey, he's been like partially mummified, it looks like. Um, and there is kind of a cool effect where as he's like touching him, you can see Jeff Fahey's real body kind of becoming like the CGI like monster that's in VR. I thought that effect looked kind of cool. Very uncanny valley.
There's kind of some interesting visuals going on here.
Yeah.
Again, you can like they are dated now, but like I think it works for like the type of movie that it is.
Yeah.
And also just makes it just really it gives it this bizarre feel to it as well. It's a bizarre
Yeah.
movie. You might as well have bizarre visuals in it too.
And so Pierce Brosnan traps him back inside the VR space by basically cutting off the internet so that there's no way he can escape. And then blowing up the facility.
Yeah, I just wrote, and then everything blows up.
Yeah. But we find out that he had apparently a trick up his sleeve and he managed to get out just in the nick of time. Because then you hear all of the phones across America ring. I thought that was honestly a pretty cool, pretty creepy ending. Like, just to show you that in the end he got out, you know? Like, it's kind of a Escape from LA, where, like, the ending feels like it's an ending to a much better movie, you know?
I guess we'll see what happens when we watch Lawnmower Man 2 Beyond
Beyond
Cyberspace.
cyberspace.
I am a bit worried about that one. And then but Pierce Brosnan, he decides to take his work underground so people won't find it. Because yeah,
I forgot about that, yeah.
that's gonna work, obviously. Okay, so um again, it doesn't really matter that much with a movie like this, but I wrote a few cons. The movie made you sick. That was one thing I wrote.
Yeah, yeah.
This is another movie where computers are magic.
Like, this one goes beyond the normal computers are magic, because normally it's like, alright, they found some, like, big cure to, like, some, like, health problem. No, it's just straight up magic. Jeff Fahey, he flies, he sets people on fire, he reads minds, he has telekinesis.
It's like that tagline said. It's like, God made him simple, science made him a god. It's like
Exactly.
science of like apparently computers aren't just magic, they can give you god powers. So parts of it's preposterous. Like it's pretty hard to take this movie seriously as a result. This is supposed to be a horror movie, right?
I think so. It really doesn't feel like one.
Science fiction horror film, I guess. And the fact they were trying to put Stephen King's name on it, clearly they were trying to sell this as like a horror type thing. But it's just so crazy and weird that it doesn't. I don't know. Like there's a few parts that are creepy, but most of it is just like this is kind of parts of it are kind of goofy and hard to take seriously. So, speaking of which, the acting is pretty over the top in some plots. Like
Yeah.
Jeff
Yeah.
Fahey and Pierce Brosnan are like, they're just hamming it up during some parts of the movie. They felt, a lot of people just felt kind of caricaturish at points,
Yeah.
which is probably even worse in the cut down version because they felt a little more like human beings with some of the added scenes.
And I will say, at least in the theatrical version, uh, Pierce Brosnan's character arc is really sudden. Because, like, at first he's like, yeah, I'm going to rope in this intellectually disabled man and do some, like, pretty unethical experiments on him. But then suddenly when it's time to present, he has problems with what he did, even though it, like, didn't really come up for him before. Like, just off screen, he grew a conscience and he was like, no, this is wrong. It's like, it felt so sudden and out of place, you know?
Kind of how it came across in the director's cut was it kind of seemed like he didn't realize the full extent of what it would do to someone, and then he started having a problem with it. But I don't know. But that was another thing I was gonna bring up. I felt Pierce Brosnan was miscast in this. He just
Very much so.
because when you think Pierce Brosnan, you think like okay. Usually Pierce Brosnan's like he's like really suave. He's got like nice hair. And this he's like this kind of eccentric like scientist with really messy hair. Like honestly, you know what? Jeff Goldblum would have been pretty good in this part.
Jeff Goldblum would have been perfect for the role of this character.
Yeah, not Pierce Brosnan. Or hell, even Sam Neill. I think Sam Neill would have.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he would have been pretty good in this. So it was just kind of weird. Pierce Brosnan.
Yeah.
And you said Pierce Brosnan's scientist is very unethical in this because
Insanely unethical. He breaks so many not just like laws, but just like moral codes that you really should follow and research. He jumped from animal testing after the animal testing had been shown to have failed because the chimp, like, you know, escaped and was a menace to society. He ignored that, went straight into human testing on an intellectually disabled person who did not know the full ramifications of what the study was going to be. Plus, Pierce Brosnan, he never fully explained what he was doing to him either. It was so insanely unethical and illegal what he did.
To be fair, I don't even think Pierce Brosnan fully understood what the experiment was gonna do to him. But yeah,
That's like true. It's also amazing how quickly Pierce Brosnan accepts the fact that Jeff Fahey has psychic powers. He doesn't really question him on it. He's just like, oh, cool. I guess you're psychic now. That's a thing I believe in.
I would say, yeah, he probably is a contender for, like, one of the worst scientists we've had on the pike. Again, he's got to compete with Saffron Burrows from Deep Blue Sea, who's like, okay, how do we cure Alzheimer's? Let's make sharks, like, super intelligent. Or, yeah. Which is kind of what happens here. They're like, let's make this guy super intelligent, yeah. Although I don't know, it's not quite as stupid as Deep Blue Sea.
Yeah.
Here, or you have again the guy from Dial of Destiny, where it's like, you know, he's a Nazi scientist. Oh my god. So, another thing, and this probably wasn't as much of a problem for you since you watched the theatrical version. The director's cut, it's too long.
How long is the director's cut?
2 hours and 20... I think it was 2 hours, 22 minutes was the version I watched.
That's really long.
It didn't need to be that long. And the first half was like kind of... It was going a bit slow. There were too many scenes. There were way too many scenes of Pierce Brosnan at board meetings with this evil bald dude.
Yeah. Yeah, no, there was a lot of those in the theatrical cut. And the evil bald dude, by the way, is played by Dean Norris.
Wait, that was Dean
Doing
Norris.
this weird...
That was Dean Norris?
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
The guy on, like, the TV screen?
I thought that was a different guy. Wait. No, it was a different guy. I was thinking of a different guy.
Oh, are you talking about the other bald guy?
There's two evil bald dudes in this. I was talking about the other bald guy.
Okay, you were talking about the other bald guy. Okay, I get you now.
I don't know who played him. Wait, who was that? I don't know the guy's name. There's two evil bald guys in this. So I forgot that Dean Norris was there during the board meetings. I forgot about that.
Yeah. And like he's putting on this weird accent the whole time where he sounds like Albert Wesker from the Resident Evil movies.
Mark Bringles. Who the hell is that? Who is that? Yeah, the guy that looks like Jeff Bezos. That guy. he looks like Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, the other evil bald guy. He does.
I didn't make that connection until now, but he does just look like Jeff Bezos. Or Lex Luthor, I guess.
Yeah.
What else is he in? Apparently he's in Austin Powers' International Man of Mystery. We've had him on the podcast before. He's in Soldier, apparently.
Have?
He's apparently in Soldier. I don't know who he plays, but he's in Soldier. And he's in Amazon Women on the Moon? What? Okay. Some character named Rubric.
He was in Night Court.
Which character is he in? Do you even have... Oh, he's also bald in that movie, apparently. Okay, I'm gonna have to add him to the... We've had him before on the podcast. I didn't notice that, I guess. But granted, it was Soldier. I mean...
Yeah.
Not the most memorable movie on the podcast. So yeah, we apparently have two contenders for best bald guy. Basically the beginning of the movie I felt was kind of slow, and then he gets god powers, and it just becomes...
It spirals out of control so fast.
It does become really entertaining, just because of how weird it gets. But it was also making me think, couldn't there be more interesting ways of exploring the computers, making him smarter than having him just bang one of his customers? It's like, just... Because there's that scene where she just meets him at the gas station and starts flirting with him, and then a few scenes later, they're just... Okay. It's so goofy.
Yeah.
And that she's the... He, takes her into the VR with him, so yeah, there's the... And yeah, that scene was weird, too, because they have, a VR sex scene, and he turns into a monster or something. What?
Yeah, it gets so confusing so fast.
It's so weird. I don't know what else there is to add with this one, do you?
There's a smaller con. At the very beginning of the movie, there's a block of text that basically is just right before the turn of the millennium, VR is a thing now. People are afraid that it's gonna be used for mind control.
Wait, right before the millennium? Right before the millennium, does that mean does that mean it takes place in the future, but the late 90s or something?
Let me check and see if I can find the intro text. Oh, by the turn of the millennium, a technology known as virtual reality will be in widespread use.
Oh, so this takes place in
computer generated. Yeah,
takes place in the year 2000 or 2001. Then,
I guess, but they misspelled the word millennium.
Oh, how'd they spell it?
They left out the second N.
Yeah, because it is spelled with two N's, right?
Yeah.
To be fair, though, I do have trouble spelling the word millennium sometimes.
That's fair. I just needed to point that out.
The millennium attack. Yeah, they did misspell it. Okay. But there was also that Latin alphabet line, so.
That's true.
I did. And also, look at this movie. Do you really think the science in this is accurate? I mean.
No.
Okay, so. Overall thoughts. Unless, did you have anything else to add, or?
No.
No, okay, but overall thoughts. Oh, and then actually, I just saw another con. There's another text box somewhere towards the end of the movie. It says, "This is what Scientologists actually believe." Or David Koresh, at least. Well, he's not a Scientologist, but he's a cult leader. So. Okay, the overall thoughts. Let's just get to overall thoughts. Again, it's by no means a good movie, but it's kind of enjoyable as this weird 90s artifact.
It is very, very strange.
You know, there's some movies that they're of their time in a bad way, but sometimes that makes a movie more enjoyable when it's like where it's clearly dated but in like an amusing way. It does have slow parts, especially in the director's cut, but when it goes completely bonkers, it's a bit of fun. So yeah, and it's also, hey, there hadn't been too many movies with VR in them yet, aside from what, like, does Tron count?
Yeah, I'd say Tron counts.
Aside from, like there's this and Tron, I guess. I can't think of too many other examples. Which Tron is also a confusing movie. Did you have anything else to add, or?
So, like you mentioned, it's not a good movie. But especially if it's your first time watching it and you're not quite sure what's about to happen next, it can be a fun watch. That being said, just based off the things that we both talked about, I'd recommend going with the theatrical version. It sounds like the director's cut is just a bit too long.
Although the plot probably makes a little bit more sense.
Yeah, that is the unfortunate trade-off.
Maybe there should be like a version where like it has both the best parts of the. It has the best parts of the director's cut, but it is cut down a little bit. So I don't know. Another thing I hadn't thought about also is the version I was watching isn't the version David Koresh was watching, so it's like
that's also fair.
Oh man, maybe at some point I'll go back and watch the theatrical cut just to see what it's like. But I wanted to see what the director's cut was like. It's it's either version though is strange apparently. So no matter which version you're watching, it's like, well, this is bizarre. Did you want to say anything else, or?
I think that's it.
Okay, there is a sequel to this called
which we will. Yeah.
It's called Lawnmower Man 2 Beyond Cyberspace. I believe it's on Tubi. The first one is as well.
Yeah, but I think it's also just free on YouTube, if I remember correctly.
And it has... Oh, this actually... You know what? This is fitting. It has Matt Frewer in it, the guy that played Max Headroom.
Yeah.
That's actually pretty fitting for a Lawnmower Man movie. Because he was like, what, the first virtual reality, like, talk show host?
Yeah, first computer-generated talk show host is also an virtual reality god.
Yeah, and I don't think I've seen Lawnmower Man 2, so I'm like, but I've heard it's really, really bad, so I'm a bit trepidatious about it. At some point we'll do Lawnmower Man 2, but our next podcast is a different movie. It is a Sean Connery movie that isn't James Bond, and that is Outland.
Yes.
Is not quite as weird as Lawnmower Man, from what I remember. What are the odds that Lawnmower Man 2 falls for the Shrek 3 curse? What do you think?
You're right. What's the Shrek 3 curse again?
Where it's like, it would be like son of Lawnmower Man, basically.
Oh no. I hope not. That would suck.
Okay, so, yeah, but until then,
roll the Andy Griffith.
Good night, you stupid idiot. Good night, you miserable slob.